Hi, it's Rachel with Stirring the Deep. I want to share with you what I feel like we're going through right now at this time. And ultimately, that is the whole dynamic, the whole spiritual dynamic of the earth is changing. And it's being infused with truth, with light, like it never has been before, and truly that pure love and wisdom of God, which is the very beginning of that, and that's causing a great change in this earth. And I talked about how that started with the reconciliation with Adam and Eve, because Christ goes back to the beginning. And so once that reconciliation is established between them and God and between each other, which means they really have humbled themselves before God, ultimately, because that's what we all have to do, that's a picture of what we all have to go through, then that seed is what starts to grow. Okay? And so remember, this reality is reflection of all that's happening in the spirit realm. Okay? So when that light starts to come, an awakening starts to happen within people. And that is coming into the awareness of what path that you've been on. Either you've been on the path of life or you've been on the path of death. Either you've been going up that ladder out of the pit of death, or you've been clinging to the things of death. Either you've been pursuing that light, the pure wisdom of God, following and seeking that pure consciousness to guide you in your life, or you've just been clinging to mankind's wisdom, that mass consciousness. So these past months, I've been talking consistently about honor and love and letting go of lust and the lust of the eyes and of the flesh and the pride of life, and having that true humility and turning away from the things of the world and letting go of the things of death and cruelty and moving into life. So now what I feel like is happening is that that door has been shut, which means at a certain point, when all that have been gathered into the kingdom are in the kingdom, that means that light is in them, then you have that kingdom being established here. So that interaction of the Spirit of God is changing in the earth. Remember I talked about that in my last video. So that means that that awakening is happening within people, to whether they're awakening to life because they've been pursuing the path of life, or they're awakening to death because that's what they've clung to. So in these last months, that call has been going out throughout the earth, that love of God saying, come to me, follow and walk in my wisdom. Now, this isn't about a religion. So you can't judge anybody by the label that they wear, right? Or by the framework in which they explain the truths that they're learning, okay? Because a lot of people come from a lot of different directions. And so it's not about the framework of how they talk about these things, right? Because some people talk about frequencies, vibrations, light, Christ, that pure consciousness. There's many ways to describe that, because Christ is that wisdom of God. Okay, that's what he became for us. He is the life, the lifeblood. So people are taught, and that's what I see people are talking about it, they're understanding the fundamental truths, but how they learn about it is different based on their culture, their society, the words, their frameworks. But the truth can be the same, because love is love. And when you understand what pure love is, when you understand what pursuing that is and pursuing the truth, then that's what matters. It's about the heart. So you can't judge anybody about where anybody's at. And that's why it says don't judge. You can't judge. And plus, you're not qualified to judge. But this time is going to reveal the hearts. And how that is because what you've really been feeding and manifesting in your life is going to start to reveal itself. So if you're awakening to life, that means that you're being filled with that Spirit because that's how you're coming to life, the Spirit of Christ, the wisdom of God, the power of God. Okay? And you're being filled with that, but that's actually bringing you into that pure spirit of a completely unique creation of how you were designed and created to be in just a glorious life. You're starting to experience abundant life because that's what Christ came to give, abundant life. So you're experiencing that increasing joy and peace and blessing and that power and that increasing love, right? I've been talking about that. So when you're awakening, you're experiencing more of that because that Spirit in you is bringing that life, because that's the path that you are on. Now, if you chose to cling to the things of death, then as you awaken, you're experiencing more of the things of death in your life. Because without the light coming here, people's lies they've seen as truth, right? And the truth they've seen as lies. So the only way for people to see really what they've been creating and manifesting is as that light comes and reveals all those things. Now, as I've been talking about, if you truly have been moving in the things of life, you have been going through a radical transformation of just an increasing honor and a love and purging of the things of the world, letting go of so many things of death and of cruelty and the lust of the flesh. And it's been a delight and a joy because you see what that creates. And so you've already been seeing this in your life. That's why the day doesn't come as a thief, because you're already experiencing the light in you. When it comes like a thief and unexpected are those people that were in lies that they thought were truth, and they thought they had life, but they were really in blindness and darkness. Okay? So this awakening is starting to happen, and it's this process as this Spirit that's in you fully, that little seed that is being filled with that Spirit, and it's coming alive. You're getting like that lifeblood of Christ. He is the life. He is the truth. He is the way. He is the light. Okay, and you're starting to feel, and that's expanding in you, and it's affecting everything around you, and it's more life, the things of life. Okay, and so those who have been choosing death, that's what they're experiencing. So what you're experiencing is in accordance to the truth that you really hold, and that's what's going to be being revealed. So the call went out to the wedding, to come to the wedding feast. And I talked about that back in November, right? And as you read in that parable, the king was calling people to come to the wedding feast, but a lot of people were too busy. They didn't want to come, right? And so a lot of people have chosen to cling to their lusts, to their carnal mind, and not be renewed and transformed in their mind. And so they haven't entered into the wedding feast, which is a feast of life. Now, there's other people, like you saw with the man that came in, that when the master saw him, he had the wrong garments. He's like, how did you get in? So there's some people that were cloaked in hypocrisy, that they thought they knew him. They thought they were in the wedding feast. But in fact, they really didn't know him, and they really didn't have, thus they didn't have on the right garments of righteousness. Right? Because the only way to have those right garments is if you're really seeking truth and understanding that it is Christ who is our righteousness, but it's that obedience in your life that leads to that righteousness. Okay? And so it's that whole dynamic that is working out. But some people have had more of a religion. They've had a hypocritical love. They feel like they do these certain acts and that's what saves them, or these certain religious acts, or they think just in general they're a pretty good person. They've never been humbled. So there's all these different views, but they actually are all the same, because they didn't give up their life. Okay? They were lukewarm. They lived on both sides. They had kind of this religion, but their life never really was transformed. and their mind wasn't transformed. Okay, so now you have this great, in this awakening, that's also that separation, right? The tares and the wheat. I mean, things are being separated. And if it's tares, meaning you clinged to this earth, you loved this life, and you didn't understand the time of your visitation. And Luke 19:47, let me turn there and read that. Luke 19:47. Oh, wait, let's see. Oh, sorry, 44. It says, okay, I'll start with verse 41. It says, now as he drew near, he saw the city and wept over it. This is Jesus, okay? Saying, if you had known, even you, especially in this your day. These are those that were supposed to know him. The things that make for your peace. It's not the thing, it's a total transformation of your mind, okay? And understanding the things of God, that and walking in the paths of righteousness and following in that obedience, which is the pure love of God, that's what creates more peace in your life, the paths of life. But now they are hidden from your eyes. Okay, and I'm going to go a little bit more on that in a minute. For the days will come upon you when your enemies will build an embankment around you, surround you, and close you in on every side, and level you and your children within you to the ground. And they will not leave in you one stone upon another, because you did not know the time of your visitation. And that time of visitation is what I feel like has been happening these past months, where God's been coming with his love and with his mercies, calling out to come to him, to come to life, to forsake the things of the world, to leave those things of the world. But people weren't willing to leave those things. Truly, they wanted to hold on to the things of death and cruelty and all those things and not let go and be renewed and transformed. And so they didn't understand the time of that visitation, that opportunity to really draw near before the door was shut, because that's what he says in verse 42, that now they are hidden from your eyes. And remember, when the door is shut, that just means, and it's really the choice that people made when they cling to death and that path, they actually close that door. Because when you're in life, that was choosing to go in and to feast on life. Okay, and get that new wine, get the new wineskins, to go into that wedding feast where you saw that miracle of Jesus at Cana in John 2, getting that new wine, the new wineskins. So then what you see in John 3 is that new life, being born again, truly of the Spirit. Okay, so that's what that means. So now they did not come. The call was going out, and you had this time of just that Spirit calling to people. And if that was ignored, now that door is shut and they're in outer darkness. So there's no longer that light there, which means there's no longer those words of wisdom, because even what they had will be taken away from them, right? That's what that verse says. Even what you had will be taken away, meaning you had some of that light, you had some of that mercy, you had some of that wisdom, that truth of God that you could grow by and tap into, but now it's outer darkness, right? Because now it's, as I said, there's a different dynamic that's happening in the earth, but the people that were seeking the light, how much more powerful that light is now than ever before to transform their life and their being, because you're being raised to a whole nother level of awareness of life, of consciousness. It's a different vibration, it's a different frequency, and all those things, that's all speaking of the same thing, which is that life, that power of God, that life of Christ. Okay, so this is what I feel like is happening right now, is that that door has been shut, and now they're awakening to the path that they've been on. All right, and a lot of people have been blinded because they think they knew God, but they didn't know God, which is those verses often quote, like, Lord, Lord, and he's saying, I never knew you. So they're going to be awakening to that reality. And in John 12, 25, it says, he who loves his life will lose it, and he who hates his life in this world will keep it for eternal life. And that's what you go through in that major purging, is an understanding of what clinging to this world even means, in which I've been trying to explain in these different videos, and what moving into life means. Okay, and so now that's what's going to be revealed. That's what's going to be shown. And also when that door shuts, that also saying that's when the judgment begins. That's when the tribulation truly starts, because there's outside and outer darkness, whiz, or weeping and gnashing of teeth. And even when you read in Joel, as I was reading in today, it talks about in verse 1:5, awake you drunkards and weep and wail all you drinkers of wine, because of the new wine. So they're stuck on the old wine. They haven't gotten the new wineskins or the new wine, for it has been cut off from your mouth. So there's a time when it's like there's that separation, there's that cutting off, because that's when judgment begins. So that those, the tares, the lies, and those consumed in the lies, and ones that thought that lies were truth and truth was lies, all that is going to start to be burning away in the tribulation, in the hardships, because those things will reveal what they really are. Because only when a lie is revealed for what it is can it be destroyed. So people are clinging to, is it truth? Well, it's got to be revealed for the lie. And that's what that whole tribulation part is doing. And once it's revealed, you turn from it. That's the repentance. And you start walking in the truth. So that's what that whole period is. But you have this separation of when the day of the Lord comes and it's dawning and it's starting to shine the light in your life, revealing those things, which is also the awakening to the state truly of your spirit. And as I said, it's not about any religious protocol or things, acts that you've done. It is about the state of your heart, and is growing in there truly the things of life and truth and the wisdom of God. Are you being filled with that light and that power of Christ and seeing that? Or is the things of death and the flesh and that carnal mind, just is all that festering in your heart? Okay. So let's see. So if you go on and you read in Joel, it kind of talks about what is happening and that experience of what is going to happen. And what you see there is that where some are awake to shame and condemnation, that's what it says in verse 11 in Joel 1, is be ashamed, you farmers, wail, you vine dressers, for the wheat and the barley, because the harvest of the field has perished. Even what you had will be taken away, because you never really had it in truth. So this is a very, I always say this, but it's so true. This is such an important time that we're in. And when I do these videos, I'm speaking of what I'm experiencing, what I'm seeing, what I'm learning, and it's the time that we're in. And these truths, they just build layer upon layer, because that's how they build. So let me read you Daniel 12:2, and then I'll wrap it up. It says, okay, I'll start just in verse 1. At that time Michael shall stand up, the great prince who stands watch over the sons of your people, and there shall be a time of trouble, such as never was since there was a nation. And we know that's talking about the end times, because it talks about that in Matthew 24. Okay, even to that time, and at that time your people shall be delivered. Okay, that's that moving into everlasting life, moving into eternal life, being filled and with that spirit, that awakening into the fullness of who you really are. But it's all because that life of Christ is becoming a part of you. It's like his blood is becoming your blood. He's the the power, the energy, the life that runs you, that governs you. Everyone who is found written in the book. And many of those who sleep in the dust of the earth shall awake. Our bodies are dust, we're of the earth. In these vessels are going to be awakening. Some to everlasting life. And that's how you know, because you're going to be growing into life. And it is glorious. Okay? Some to shame and everlasting contempt. You're going to be awakening to the true state of your heart. Those who are wise shall shine like the brightness of the firmament, and those who turn many to righteousness like the stars forever and ever. That's the transition that you're going to be seeing. And that's why some will say, Lord, Lord. And he's like, I never knew you. Why are they crying out to him? Because they're seeing this change, this dynamic happening. And that's what I feel like we're in the midst of right now. Till next time, keep stirring the deep. It's the one thing that changes everything else.